So today talk is very unusual because we are trying to serve also outside of our community. So I believe Scrum Master Agile coaches will know exactly what coaching is about, but very often managers, they would have coaching in their job descriptions, but very often not exactly knowing what coaching is and how to actually what to do with it. So we invited today Liz Barron, Liz will do her own introduction in a few seconds, but I will just give a very quick highlights of what to expect. So Liz is a mentor and supervisor coach with ICF. ICF stands for International Coaching Federation. It's a globally recognized body for accrediting coaches. I know Liz because she was my supervisionary coach. So that's how we get to know each other. Liz also has a background in IT, which is really good because she's, one of us. She knows what she's talking about and she knows how to eat it. So this is very brief introduction, and Liz, please add to it whatever you would like our audience to know about you.
Cool. That's great. Thank you very much, Joanna and O'Day, for facilitating today, so I don't have to worry about checking the chat and all that kind of thing. It's great to get a sense of where everybody's joining from, so that's fantastic. Let me just share my slides here, and I presume that we can distribute these afterwards if needed.
Yeah. So. Yeah, thanks very much for reminding me, Liz. So anybody, if you're not on the newsletter yet, please sign up because the slides will be distributed via our newsletter communication.
Great, thanks, Joanna. So Joanna gave the brief introduction, and obviously that's how we know each other because I've been working as a coach for quite a long time and doing coaching supervision, training, and mentoring as well for coaches. And just this subject is fascinating to me because it's really about how do we make sure that it's not just about sitting down and having a formal coaching session with somebody, but how do we integrate the core skills of coaching into leading in an agile environment, or in any environment for that matter. So just briefly, this meandering river that is life, my story again is just, I have a background in IT, project and change management, back into the last century, and business consulting, a lot of facilitation and training, and even agile mentoring in the early 2000s. So that was really back in the bleeding edge when agile was very new, and we had some success with it in terms of encouraging business and IT to collaborate more effectively. So that was really interesting, and I realized that I was actually even more interested in the people and how they think and how they collaborate and what works and so on. And I trained then as a personal and business coach back in 2009 and set up my own coaching practice. So involved in, executive leadership coaching, team coaching, and if you like, encouraging leaders and managers to use coaching skills as well, whether they want to be a formally qualified coach or they just want to get better at leading and managing their team. So I just want to maybe check in with the chat if people want to maybe just say, well, what does coaching mean to you? And I know a lot of you will know this. So just wondering, is there a short phrase? What does coaching mean for you when you think about it? If you feel like typing into the chat. We did say we'd make this interactive, so we'll try and keep it as interactive and conversational as we can. Guidance, Alex is saying, yeah. Leadership, yeah. Yeah, being curious, I like it, yeah. Support, trust, listening first, yeah. Helping others to reach a solution, helping people be the best they can be, helping you uncover your own thinking, active listening.
Yeah, how to avoid child support? Well, one thing you can do is fake your death. Over 500,000 people go missing a single year. Why can't or
so yeah, helping the coachee to identify the solution.
North Korea.
So okay, great. So meeting the person where they're at and working with them to reach their best. So yeah, great stuff. So just to make sure that we all have that kind of same definition, I suppose a lot of people, and when you think about sports coaching, and in sports here in Ireland, and I'm sure all over the world, you know, we think about coaches as being people who run up and down the sidelines and kind of shout instructions at people. And sometimes, you know, I've heard of people talking in the workplace like a coach is someone who stands behind you and you know, eggs you on and sort of tells you what to do. What we're talking about is something different, exactly like a lot of you have mentioned. And the reason why the tennis ball is here, does anybody want to hazard a guess why the tennis ball is here? Okay, I'm just going to jump on ahead and say that one of the key founders of the whole coaching movement was a guy called Tim Galway, who wrote a book called The Inner Game of Tennis back in the 1970s. And the key difference was he was getting on okay as a tennis coach, and he was telling his students, this is how you need to play your backhand, this is what you need to do here, this is what you need to do there. And one day he realized that if he asked them a question and said, what way is the ball spinning as it passes over the net? So what he's inviting them to do is to pay more attention to what's going on right in the moment, and then ask them, so what do you think you need to do to make it go where you want to go? So it's a whole different approach to how we have those conversations with people. So, you know, what it's not is about telling people what to do and how to do it. And what it is, again, a lot of you mentioned a lot of the things here: creative, thought-provoking conversations, empowering people to move towards awareness, action, and growth. And, you know, I know because I hear it from coaches and I hear it from clients and I hear it from teams that I'm working with, you know, there is huge challenges that we're dealing with in the workplace. We've come through an extremely turbulent and difficult time in history. And obviously things are still very volatile and uncertain and challenging, complex and ambiguous. So, you know, we've all this lack of resources, you know, competing priorities, no clarity, resistance to change, all of these kind of challenges. And the bottom line is that leaders like yourselves can become overloaded and bottlenecks if we're being asked to advise and give instruction and, you know, please tell me what to do. So that is, I suppose, one of the key challenges. And in terms of, you know, why coaching might be essential, if we look at some research that was done by Harvard Business School last year, they're saying that the key qualities that are needed for digital transformation and moving forward are about adaptability, so the ability to kind of figure things out on the fly. Obviously, that fits with it, like an agile kind of mindset. Curiosity, somebody mentioned that in the chat, so it's really trying to uncover what is going on with them. Creativity, encouraging creativity, and being comfortable with ambiguity. So understanding that things are going to be very, cloudy for a while, and we have to be able to kind of work with and through that. So that article is on the Harvard website if you want to look up 6 unexpected traits. And really the key message in it, it's a really good article, is it's about moving from what you might call command and control to empowering. So if someone is not doing what you want them to do, rather than kind of doubling down on that, what about trying a different way? So, you know, we bring a lot of baggage, ourselves included, and we can't treat people like machines. They're not clones, we're not clones. Well, most of us are not clones just yet. We are uniquely human, and it sounds like a bit of a, you know, cliche, but if you think about all of the ways that we're different, apart from the visible differences, you know, personality styles. I think you might have had a presentation recently about DISC, the 4 color energies and all of that kind of thing. You know, some people have a preference for being quieter, more on the introversion side. Some people prefer to be more extroverted, more outgoing, more high energy. Some people like task orientation. Some people like, you know, people orientation. And we have a mixture of all of those characteristics individually, but everyone is different. We've different behavior patterns, different cultural backgrounds and heritage. we've come from different family systems, you know, different types of relationships with authority figures, you know, different value systems. These things are all kind of interdependent, and different experiences. We've come through different paths in life. So by the time we all get to sit in a room together virtually or in person, we've all come on very different journeys. So we can't ever say, oh, well, you know, people are robots or people are the same. Everybody will see situations in their own way. So it's just kind of being conscious of that. And I was asking the question about, you know, from the Agile Manifesto's perspective, do we really value people over process? And a research project that was carried out in Google some years ago really determined that when they were looking at what really makes a successful team, it was this factor of psychological safety. So people would talk about a safe space. I mean, you can't say it's a safe, you can't just make a safe space by saying it's a safe space. It's created by, I love this word, ostentatious listening. So ostentatious meaning really obvious and authentic. So it's not just about, you know, oh yes, I'll tick the boxes and I'll ask the questions and I'll nod and I'll mirror them and, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's actually really caring about what's going on with this person, and showing them that you're listening and that you're working to understand. And then there's the equality of conversation. So it means that everyone in the team, everybody in the group feels like they're free to speak, that they get equal opportunities to speak, and that they are heard when they speak. So all of this means that people have better collaboration, more willing to experiment, and they're open to feedback, which is again one of the challenges sometimes. So what we're going to do here is we're going to focus on, okay, we have all of these challenges. We understand that you know, people want to feel like they matter in the environment that they work in. And so we want to focus on what we can control or influence as leaders or as managers. And hopefully by doing that, that we also model that for other people. So you might have come across this before. It's the 7 habits of highly effective from the 7 habits. But it's the idea of having different circles of control, things that we can control, things that we can influence. So, you know, the circle of concern is stuff that gets into our heads every day: the traffic, the environment, you know, what the latest policy on, I don't know, overtime is in your company, you know, what your partner wants to have for dinner. And all of these things are all things that kind of might be flying around in our, what we might call our circle of concern. And what we're inviting everybody to do is say, okay, well, all of these things take up headspace. How can we focus more on how we can influence what's going on, and even more to target in on what we can control? And there's only a very small amount of things. We often try to control things that at best we might be able to influence. So we work really hard to try and maintain control over certain things. And in reality, we might be able to influence them. But really what we're trying to do is recognize there are lots of things we can influence by changing our, you know, preconceptions, by changing our beliefs and so on. So, and then we might have things that are of no concern. So what I'd invite you to do at some point, if you want to take a screenshot of that or whatever, or go and have a look at it online, there's loads of examples of it. It's just to even think about from your own point of view, like what are things that you worry about and give a lot of headspace to, you know, in each of these categories, and how can you maybe focus more on the things that really matter and that you choose to do something about. So on to the 3 essentials of coaching, which that's what we said on the tin. So I'm sure these phrases will look familiar to lots of you, if not all of you. You'll recognize them as the first few stages from design thinking. And what I felt was that actually pure coaching skills really line up very well with these, and their ways of actually making this work. So, you know, clarity is about determining the goal. What does better look like in a conversation? That power skill there is goal setting. How do you make sure that you are clear about what you're moving towards or what you want to move towards? Empathizing is about being curious, questioning, seeking to understand, identifying pain points, looking at how it's impacting the person you're having the conversation with. And then under ideation, it's about opening up the conversation into, exploring solutions, disrupting thinking. So this is about exploring what's possible, visioning what are possible options, possible solutions. And we haven't forgotten about the other parts, but we did say we'd focus on 3. So I think if you get these 3 things right, the actions and the solutions just naturally follow on. So what we're going to do now is Joanna has kindly volunteered to be the volunteer for a short conversation today. And we're going to set up a coaching conversation, that would be like Joanna's coming to me, I'm her line manager, and she has a challenge with somebody in her team who's underperforming. And we're just going to explore choosing some coaching kind of techniques, if you want. So I'd just like you to maybe take out a pad and pen and say, well, is there anything different about this conversation that you would notice from a normal line manager conversation? Think about where you might notice the 3 essentials that we've talked about: clarity, curiosity, creativity, and what's the impact of that. So if you just want to kind of observe, hopefully it won't be too much of a car crash, and I will stop sharing that so that you can see, hopefully, myself and Joanna. So I've pinned Joanna now so I can just see her face. So it's like we're having a proper conversation in the workplace. So we're going to take maybe about 8 to 10 minutes. Is that okay? So Joanna, what would you like to talk about today? What's on your mind?
So Liz, I would like to discuss with you Alex, because I feel that things are turning, they are worse every sprint. It's worse and worse.
Yeah. Like in what way?
Alex had, another argument this week with another team member, and again, it's not performing, and not responding well to feedback. It's not great. Okay.
And what kind of impact is this having on the team?
The dynamic on the team is awful now. It's everybody blames everybody. It's not great. It's really bad, actually.
Yeah. And what's your sense of what's going on?
It seems Alex just doesn't care. Like, it's, to do minimum, effort, to put the minimum effort and do it as little as possible.
Yeah.
And he doesn't care about quality at all.
Yeah. And you sound a bit fed up with all of this.
Yeah, it consumes lots of my time. Like, this team, like I have 3 teams, and this team is taking, huge chunk of my time. It's not fair on other teams either. Yeah.
And would you, is it possible that, do you think he understands the role that's expected of him? Is he clear about what's expected?
Well, I guess if you are a developer, you kind of know what's your job about, isn't it? I'm not sure if you had any conversation with the line manager, his line manager, or her line manager, but it's, programmer is a programmer, isn't it?
So what might be going on there?
I don't know. She's very negative, and she's very on the fence. Like, at the moment, I think she's having such a hard time. She's constantly responding, in defensive mode.
So I'm sure that's having an impact on him as well.
I'm sure it does.
So I'm just wondering what's kind of within your control here.
Well, I could request to have him change. I can request for the new developer.
And what would that solve?
Would resolve my problem, as long as she doesn't go to my other team.
Yeah, that could just move the problem along, right?
Yeah.
So what's your energy level for working to fix this?
Well, I feel I tried everything. You know, the retrospectives are very unproductive. You know, you cannot very much talk to Alex. He's not very, you know, communicative. Like there's not much communication there. So I don't know. I feel like I hit the wall. I tried everything.
And if the other team members are clear about sort of what's expected of them and what it means to be part of this team, do you think Alex has the same understanding?
I don't know, to be honest with you. Maybe there's a language barrier. I'm not sure. Like
in what sense are you thinking?
So it's, you know, he's not a native speaker. Maybe there is something missing in communication.
Okay. Do you want to say a bit more about that?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not sure what was the onboarding process. So I don't know if anybody, you know, if he has any mentor or if, you know, anybody show him the job. I don't know how, you know, like his English is good, but it's not brilliant, you know, like, so I don't know if he understands everything, and he definitely not asks. He doesn't ask if he doesn't.
Yeah. So it's possible that he might feel a bit isolated.
I think for sure, because you can even see, you know, like she's on her own, like most of the time.
Okay. So what would you like to happen here?
Well, I think I come to you for some kind of solution, because I don't know, you know, what to do. Like, I feel I tried everything. So now I need you to tell me what you want me to do.
Well, you're closer to it than I am. So I'm just wondering, you know, what have you not tried?
I tried everything, to be honest with you.
So what have you tried?
Retrospectives, not productive. I watch the, you know, the dynamic on the team, and, you know, when things are happening. And to be honest with you, Alex is always on the fence, but in all fairness, she's always blamed. So she's, you know, like straight away into defense mode. So the dynamic there is not great. The team, you know, doesn't have a great open conversations. You know, people will bitch behind his back a lot. I did try to tell people to raise those issues at the retrospectives, but yeah, it wasn't productive so far.
So have you ever been in a situation like that yourself, feeling isolated or disconnected from the rest of the team?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So what worked for you?
I guess he's probably lonely. You know, he doesn't seem that there is he has anybody or anybody there to support him and to even, you know, show him anything if he doesn't understand. Even like person who can, like, he can go and ask, okay, I misunderstood it. Can you please tell me what's happening?
So again, if you were in that situation, what would help? What action could be taken?
Well, I guess I could discuss with the team to having a buddy system and pairing her with somebody, and maybe that would help, at least to, you know, in terms of clarifying things and things like that.
Yeah. Anybody come to mind?
Yeah, so it seems Angie is quite neutral. She doesn't seem to be too impatient with him, so maybe Angie.
Okay. And maybe one final question. What other support do you think you might need to take action on this?
I think I might talk to John to see what was the onboarding process. If the role there's a full, you know, clarity. It seems, to be honest with you, when we're speaking, it hit me when I was saying it out loud that, you know, the role of programmer, it's not that clear either, because, you know, we expect programmers to follow some standards. I don't know if Alex knows those standards. You know, we expect them to test their own work before they send it to testing. And I don't know if anybody explained that to him. I don't know if there was, to be honest with you, like everybody is so busy. I wouldn't be surprised if there was no onboarding process at all.
Yeah. So, I mean, he mightn't be feeling terribly confident then about taking on and taking ownership and getting stuck in, really, would he?
Oh, yeah, he's not confident at all, yeah.
Mm. Okay, so what's next for you?
In terms of what will I do? Like, sorry,
Yeah.
that's what. I will check with Angie if she would be okay to body with Alex, and guess I will suggest that to Alex. I don't know if he will pick up on that idea, but I think it would be good if she did. And then I will talk to John as well to find out if Alex went through proper onboarding process.
Okay. How are you feeling now versus when we started the conversation?
Well, like at least there is some plan. You will see how that goes, but at least there is a there is something. I think Angie might be able to help at least with miscommunication. So I think at least that part might improve.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thanks, Joanna.
Thank you. And everybody, I just want to highlight that I didn't go crazy. I know that Liz was saying he and I was saying she, and then the other way, because I didn't want to, define this is.
We didn't want to gender stereotype.
Yeah.
And I might even ask Joanna, just, if you were a colleague coming to their manager in that situation, was there anything that you found that might be a bit different about that conversation? And we'll ask other people what they might have observed as well. I
really like that you push the solution on me. I have to say, I really like it, because basically what I was doing, pushing the responsibility on you. You tell me what to do, and I really, that's everybody knows it. But even when I was speaking, you feel that okay, the weight is back on you.
Yeah, and it may not be what you think you want, because for a lot of people, it's like, here, manager, please sort this out for me. I have enough on my plate. But the problem is that, if people get overloaded with all sorts of things like that, then it's impossible to do anything. So what we're really trying to do is empower people kind of at the point of need, to be able to have those conversations. And I know this is a kind of a third party. We're talking about, someone else who's not directly involved, but like typically they are some of the challenges that managers have. So just wondering if people wanted to type into the chat, or if they've anything that they observed about that might have been a bit different, or that you felt had a particular impact. So it wouldn't be like a pure coaching session where I'm a coach and I'm not involved at all. It is slightly different. Anyone got any observations or things that they thought worked?
Sorry, Liz, we already have some comments in the chat. So
sure.
If I do want to.
Sure.
Sorry, no, the comments are starting to I saw them. Yeah, go on.
Great. Yeah. So Patricia says asking to get someone else involved. Yeah, and it's not even trying to lead them. It's just saying, what other support do you need? I think the challenge is that a lot of the time as a manager, you might say, so how can I help you with this? And I would say, don't assume that they need your help. It's asking an open question that's not leading them in any way. It might, what resources, what other support might they need to actually move this forward? Don't make them dependent on you any more than they have to be. Any other observations about what might have been different? Yeah, manager was neutral, not just on the side of his team member. Checked in with how the coachee feels. Yeah, and the curiosity piece, like, I think it's really important. If someone's coming to you with a problem, sometimes the fact that they are stressed out by the problem, or it's one of 20 things that's on their mind, it makes them less able to see a way forward. So in a way, by you being curious about the problem and really exploring it with them, that really helps them to kind of go, oh, okay, now the thing is starting to kind of become more, I suppose, looser and more easy to work through. energy level to deal with this. And again, we didn't script that, like we just sort of outlined the scenario and just talked generally speaking about, you know, what it was. So it's, the idea is to open it out. So it's back to this idea, we're not robots, people are people behave the way they behave because of who they are. And as managers or leaders, if we ignore that, and I know a lot of the time people are reluctant to ask sort of kind of searching questions because they don't want to upset somebody, or they feel it's maybe, you know, overstepping. But again, you know, if we really care about the person, and if we want, it's not so much that the answers we need for ourselves, it's answers they need for themselves. So it's helping them to see what might be getting in their way. Exploring the impact of on people, not only on the business. Yeah, questioning. Great. Yeah. Anything else?
Can I say something? I just don't want to
Sure.
type it in. Sorry,
Hi,
Liz.
Robert. Yeah.
Fair play to you there, okay? Because Joanne didn't make it easy for you either.
She did not.
you were definitely flying by the seat of your pants, but well done. And like I've coached many people over the years, and sometimes it's trying to extract that and really get them to put them in a frame of mind to think.
Yeah.
But giving them that space, but knowing that you're on a time limit, I thought was excellently, very well done. You know, because that can be a challenge, especially in a example environment, which is what we're in at this moment in time. You know,
and we're also trying to say this is not about going off and booking a meeting room for like an hour. You know, this is just very quick in the moment. You have a challenge. How can I help you? So if our default response is to say, right, Joanna, you need to go off and make sure he's really clear or she's really clear about, you know, what the team expects of him, what his role is, what her role is, all of that stuff. You know, it's not that it's not helpful sometimes, but what we're really trying to do is teach or show somebody how they can problem solve for themselves. And the other thing is, if you've told them something,
it's yours, it's not theirs.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what's the likelihood that they're going to go, oh, great, that's a brilliant idea, off I go to do it? You know, the chances are they'll go, that's not going to work. And then they do nothing. So really the idea is you're trying to kind of almost co-design and tease out a solution from this person, or at least an action they can try that's something different to what they've tried, or maybe a slightly different approach to how they've faced it before. The manager asking the right questions, defining the problem statement in clear language. Unless the problem's understood, of course, we can't find the root cause yet. And Joanna says, when you ask me what else you did, I like that, as I know next time when I come to you, I already need to have a list of things I tried to resolve. Yeah, good. Because you hear people talk about, don't come to me with problems, come to me with solutions. But part of your role maybe, or where you can add value as a leader and a manager, is to create the space. Robert mentioned space. Can you create a bit of space where you can explore, rather than giving them a solution, where you can explore together? So you're partnering. Okay, if there's anything else.
Liz,
sure.
we see Felicia has her hand up.
Great. What's your question, Felicia?
No, it's not a question, just a statement. It's very helpful to, as you mentioned, Liz, to tease out solutions, because what happens is sometimes the person may feel that they've exhausted all of the options and they're kind of stuck. And what you're doing is helping them to think further and to come up with something themselves, to be accountable, get some kind of ownership. And sometimes you don't have it in your head, but when you're talking it out, it allows you more levity to come up with some more solutions, you the person who's experiencing the issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Creating space, and also really, I mean, to my mind, that's what true collaboration is. Like, neither of us has the answer here, because you know, as I said, Joanna's closer to the problem than I am, so I don't really know exactly what's going on. So if I come in with my big, you know, sledgehammer solution, that's not maybe going to work either. So it's co-creating a solution, or helping Joanna to create a solution could work. There's no guarantees, but it's worth a try, right? Thanks, Felicia.
And please, before we actually go into questions and answers, I forgot to say something. So can I kidnap that part of the session?
Sure, absolutely.
For two announcements. First announcement, we are aware that some of you actually grouped in the room, and we had at peak time, we had over 100 people on this meetup, but we also know that some people gathered together. So if you want to take a picture of you, if you are in the group, and tag us on Ali on LinkedIn, that would be great, because it would give us some idea how many people actually are watching us, which topics are popular. It gives us some, data analytics and so on. So that would be great if you can, but obviously, unless you tag us, we won't see it. So you have to tag Ali for us to see it. Another thing is, we are exploring option with different topics and toward speakers. So if you attended some interesting talk and you know that it would be good for our community, you know somebody who is trying something, they might have a success story, but they might also have a great case study of what not to do. And they learn a lot because they made lots of mistakes, and now at least we can learn from them what not to do. Also, please share that with those contact people with us, and we'll be very happy to follow up and invite them to our sessions. We are community for community, so we want to learn from each other. That's the same you. If you have any case study, any theories, frameworks, anything, any thoughts that you want to share with our community, please write to us, and we'll be very happy to accommodate that. Right? Thanks very much, and back to you, Liz.
Great, thanks, Joanna. So I'll come on to questions now shortly, but speaking of questions, what I wanted to do next was maybe to share, okay, so how did we do that? Really, a lot of it is about open questions. You can also kind of sum up what you're hearing from the other person, so you help them hear back what the challenge is. So I'm just going to share some questions, and you might want to take a screenshot of this maybe, so you're not waiting to get the slide deck. So I'm just suggesting some questions that you might use at different stages, or any stage of the conversation. You might sort of zigzag back and forward between them. So a lot of this is about really good listening, about open questions, about not sort of assuming anything really. So in the define or in the clarity stage, we're saying what you want to achieve from our conversation. I don't think I actually did that at the beginning. It was like, so Joanna, what would you like to, what are you going to leave here? How can I help, in other words? And I think I'd avoid using that, because that means straight away that's an invitation for your colleague to say, oh, I want you to do this, this, and this. What we're trying to do is sort of maybe hold that off. It's not to say that we're not going to help, but what we do is that's an action that we take if it's appropriate. So what do you want to achieve? What are you aiming for? What's within your control here? What can you influence? What would a better situation look like? If this situation was solved, how would you like to see things working? Why is it important to solve this now? What happens if you do nothing? All of that is all about getting clarity on why this problem is important and what they're trying to achieve. So much stuckness and so much inertia comes from not really knowing how you want things to look in the future. Then in the empathize stage, and again, these are not necessarily like a process that goes linearly. You could be moving around this. What could be going on here? What's your theory? What's your hypothesis about what might be going on here? What's getting in your way? What's the biggest concern? How's it impacting on you? You might say, here's what I'm noticing. I'm seeing that this seems to be really causing you a lot of stress, and that must be affecting you, and is it affecting the team as well? So you're making observations about what you're seeing in front of you, not judgments. You're making kind of observations about how it's impacting on the other person.
Sorry, Liz, would you be able, literally in 30 seconds or less than a minute, to explain difference between judgment and observation? Yeah. Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot. No, I know it, okay. But I think
it's one of my favorite themes. So I could go, to keep it short. To me, judgment and curiosity are the opposites. So judgment is you've evaluated information of whatever kind and you've come to a conclusion. So you've made up your mind. Whereas curiosity is the open mind. It's asking questions. It's, like, what's going on here? What might be happening? We don't have an actual detailed answer for that yet, but there's some possibilities that could be going on that weren't really thinking about before. So if we ask that wider question, does that answer your question?
I was just clarifying for everybody else, so I hope that it makes it clear now. But yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, good.
Liz, can I interrupt there just for one
sure.
thing? And,
Hi, Robert.
Very, very quickly. You mentioned listening, okay, and it comes back to Joanne's question around, and you said, look, judgmental is the opposite of curiosity. I agree with you fully. But sometimes, and this is for everybody in the room, when someone is speaking and you think you get what they're saying, and we have a tendency to go, yeah, I know what I'm finishing your sentence for you.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, it's worthwhile sometimes. Exactly. Yeah. It's no, but it is worthwhile. It is worthwhile just to step back a little bit and just hear them out, because you may cut across somebody and you might lose the thread.
Yeah.
You know, so that's just all I want to say, and apologize for interrupting.
No, that's a really good point, because like language means different things to different people. So it's really important. Maybe at that point you say, okay, so when they've finished, you might say, okay, so let me just check that I got this right. And this is even more important when you don't agree with somebody, because, you know, you could be getting ready to just, well, now that's completely ridiculous sort of thing. And you're already kind of preparing your argument against whatever they've said, but their opinion is still their opinion. So this is back to, how do we create safety for people to speak, even when people have differing points of view or different perspectives. So yeah, so that's the curiosity piece, and trying to avoid making judgments, and even noticing when you're making judgments. You know, because our brains work really quickly, and we make deductions that we're not always aware of. So creativity, what's possible? What haven't you tried before? If someone else was in a similar situation, what would you advise? That question that I asked about, you know, so if you were in that situation yourself, you know, what would be useful to you? Again, it just kind of creates a different way of thinking about it, and hopefully creates a bit of empathy as well for the other person who's kind of experiencing something. You know, clearly they're probably not happy either, you know, but they may not know how to fix it or how to move forward. And what are all your options? Because being human, we tend to seize on the first solution and we go, right, that's grand, off I go. But actually, by sort of teasing it out a little bit and saying, okay, actually, you might come up with an even better solution or combination of those solutions. And we won't forget about the other, you know, prototype and test parts of the design thinking model that, you know, somebody asked about. How do you make sure that they become accountable? In one sense, because they've been involved in designing and exploring and coming up with a possible solution, they're much more likely to take action on it. So it's, how can you experiment with this? What might be one step forward? Where could you start? You know, and then it's about, okay, when will we check in on this again? Or do you want to let me know how it goes? But it's important to really trust the other person that they can handle it, or they're certainly able to kind of take it to the next stage. Yeah, I'm just going back to the chat here to just see anything that sticks out to you, Joanna, that coaches talk. How can the coach empower the mentees? So that's, yeah, really, where do you go from here? What are you going to do? Is the empowering and action oriented kind of question. So Rahul is asking about topics we might have to share. I'm not sure how to answer that.
I will answer that. Sorry, I didn't see it. I will answer it now. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to say briefly that we've been in discussion. I've been in discussion with Agile Ireland about coming up with a program that's really designed to learn more about the core skills of coaching, so the power skills to coach your team. And that's going to be a 2.5-day program, both hybrid and online. And we have dates being settled for April and May next year. I'll be delivering it. And yeah, so more details will be coming soon. So the QR code there, you can scan and register your interest if that's something that you want to learn more about. And yeah, Sharon is saying also include when are you going to start. Yeah, so when are you going to do that? I think sometimes you can kind of gauge from somebody where, you know, they yeah, in a professional coaching context, you're there to make sure that the coachee is accountable for what they commit to, but they choose how they're going to be accountable. It might be slightly different if you are their manager. So, you know, this might be where you're being a bit more proactive than that and saying, come back and report back to me or whatever. And again, that's part of the support that they might need. They might need somebody to just know that their line manager is aware of this challenge and so on. Okay, so I'm going to move on to any questions. So questions, what are they?
Can we stop sharing maybe, Elise? So,
Yeah, sure.
so for questions, so we can look at each other, and if you can switch on the cameras again, that's a last chance to put some names on people faces, and then when you meet next time, you know each other already. Any questions, anybody?
And obviously, if people have questions or want to contact me directly on LinkedIn or by email, please do.
No questions. So would anybody have any reflections? How do you see the coaching and managerial responsibility going together? Is that a skill that you know it's well understood across managers, or not always? Like, what are your observations from the workplaces?
Yeah, I don't think that's a really common skill. I think that a lot of managers probably day to day are just trying to get to it, right? They're sort of in pressurized organizations, so they just transmit that pressure on. And the idea of kind of doing what you two demonstrated so beautifully, right, requires really settling into that moment in time. And most of them probably wouldn't say they have that freedom.
Yeah. A lot of the time it's easier to just offer the solution and move on to the next fire. Yeah. Thanks, Madeline.
Yeah, I feel the same, that sometimes there is no time for coaching because it takes time, doesn't it? So you have to have a meeting, you have to think for yourself, go away, do something, experiment with it. Maybe it doesn't work, maybe it works, and so on. So these things take time. And why there is a kind of buzzword, yeah, you will be a coach and so on, you are not given this time, and then your coaches or whatever, they aren't given the time to. So you just tell them what to do, and then the next day they should do that. Well, they don't anyway, but yeah, so that's what I feel, that will not only lack sometimes the skills, but this acceptance that this takes time.
Yeah. And at the same time, you know, that took about 8 minutes. So it wasn't a 60-minute conversation or anything, you know? Yeah. So, and I think Raul has a question. He seems to have his hand up.
Yeah, so as a manager, right, there are broadly differentiate, there are 4 roles that a manager is required to play. Sometimes a counselor, sometimes a coach, sometimes a consultant, and sometimes a teacher. From the TAPS model, I'm taking this out. So one needs to understand which hat to wear when. And when it comes to specifically to coaching, it's a dedicated role, right? You need to invest time with your coachee to first of all create that sense of safety, and only then will the coachee be able to open up really about what the problems are. And many a times during your role as a manager, you don't have enough time, so you end up giving the solution right there and then, but that sometimes does not help. So something that I have been following with my whenever I do coaching is that every time I am required to give a solution, I try to ask a question as to, okay, I'm giving you a solution, but you have to answer to me why this is the right solution. And it has worked so many times that the person comes back to me and says that yeah, you give me a solution, it worked this time, but I think the reason is something else and I have a better solution. So many a times the coachee himself or herself comes forward and gives us an even better solution.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Raoul. What I just want to ask people, if there's one thing or tip or useful approach that they came across today that they might like to try, that might be handy to type into the chat. But just to build on that point, Raoul, yeah, you know, you do have to recognize, and people are in different places, and if someone is in a very junior kind of capacity, they're going to need more teaching, they're going to need more hand-holding, guidance. But I think we also can't make assumptions about how good people's problem-solving ability is. And if we keep giving solutions, then we create a dependence on us. And I think it's always important to kind of just challenge that. How do you, it's like having small kids. How do you get them to think for themselves? So as you said, it's not always appropriate, but there are lots more conversations it could be peppered into without it being a formal conversation. May is just saying, ask more questions. Yeah, ask more questions.
And please, sorry, I think we have very interesting observation there in the chat. So somebody pointed, you need coaches to be ready to be coached. But really, because this is not normal, this is what we actually discussed with Liz yesterday, because this is not typical coaching session. When I'm going to Liz and we have a coaching contract because I have a problem, I need her support, I want that. But very often that scenario is not necessarily welcome or wanted. Yeah. So then how do you have any tips how to, because contract, then it's possibly not, you cannot go exactly about, that way of establishing that session. So how would you go about that one, Alice?
So if Alex is in my sphere of influence, I find a way, either myself or somebody else, to have a conversation with them and find out, give them some feedback about what you're seeing. What are the behaviors that are seen? What's the impact of that on the rest of the team? Or they haven't put in more work, and so on and so on. And ask them what's going on. Ask them, are they clear about, what do they need? Are they clear about what's expected of them? Funny, I just asked ChatGPT earlier on about exactly that scenario. Some great questions in there. Are you clear about your role? All that kind of good stuff. So if you're really stuck, you can ask ChatGPT.
Brilliant. And Liz, later you have less than a minute, because I think there is another very good question in the chat about creating that psychological safety and trust during those coaching sessions, but they are different coaching sessions. So I'm not exactly here, but as a volunteer, I kind of, it's enforced, like I report to you. So how to create that safety net there?
Yeah. Look, I think when someone doesn't feel safe, that's because they don't believe somebody really cares about them. So I think if they feel that you are asking the questions because you care about them and not primarily because you want results, this is back to people over process. If you really care about them, there is a chance that they might open up, but that's not going to just happen overnight.